everybody, and welcome to today's video. We're going to be talking about a visual novel today, and a very good one at that. With all the RPGs and JRPGs coming out at the moment, it's easy to forget that there are other genres, but there are indeed other genres, and this little game called Cupid Parasite by Idea Factory is a really standout example of the visual novel. I've got a review up on digitallydownloaded.net which you can check out. But the long and short of it is I really do enjoy this game. I think it is an excellent example of the otome genre and definitely one worth checking out. It is a little bit interesting that Idea Factory has published it in the West because for the most part, though they produce a lot of otome games through the Automate development studio, they don't tend to publish them out here. Usually Axis picks them up, but for whatever reason Axis hasn't picked up this one and Idea Factory has decided to go it alone. I suspect the reason is that this doesn't really fit the bill of what you might expect from Automate games. Most of the otome visual novels are quite dark in tone. They might look beautiful and they certainly have beautiful characters and there's always a romantic story within them because they are, after all, otome, but there's usually a dark edge to them. There's usually some kind of violence involved. There's usually, well, not usually, but quite often there's sexual violence involved as well. And there's always some very adult themes as such within there. This one, Cupid Parasite, is very different. It is a very intelligent visual novel and a very mature one for reasons that we'll discuss in this video, but it is very light and bubbly, deliberately so. It is very much making a point of it, but it is a very light and bubbly comedy romance. So the themes are quite different. So I can understand why Axis would have passed this one up and why Idea Factory, who would have wanted to have it out in the West anyway, was kind of forced to take it on themselves. However, in this video, I don't want to talk about the game itself because I've already done that in the review and this is a supplementary video as I like to do. I'm not going to talk about the game itself. I'm going to talk about the thing that is most immediately obvious when you turn this thing on, and that is the art style. And this game is over the top with its color. It is very bright. It is very colorful. It is almost a game where you'll want to go and get some sunglasses just to view because it is just so vivid. It's deep. The colors in this game are quite bright, of course, but they're also deep and rich, and it's just, it fills your eyes and it is very hard to look away from, but also it is very tiring to look at for long periods of time because it is just so bright and colorful and over the top. And the reason I want to talk about it is it actually kind of talks to an art movement in Japan that I have liked and been a big fan of. Well, it's a global art movement, but it kind of started from a Japanese artist. And I've quite liked it and wanted to talk about it for a while. I haven't really had an excuse until this game. This game very heavily reminds me of it, and I think that it's a deliberate reference to it because the game's themes do match up with the kind of the themes of this art movement. Now, it is a new art movement. It hasn't been around for too long, and it kind of emerged out of the philosophy and thought behind pop art. Now, everybody knows pop art, of course, because they know Andy Warhol, they know the soup cans, and they know really what pop art was. It was this reaction to consumerism in a lot of ways and a criticism of that concept, the idea of rampant consumerism, and pop art was really there as a way of expressing that, the kind of shallowness behind consumerism. So the art movement that emerged out of it came from an artist called Takashi Murakami. He's a very famous Japanese artist, although I believe he is actually based in the US now, possibly, or if he isn't based in the US, he spends a lot of time in the US. Anyway, he is a Japanese artist, and he's come up with this art movement called super flat. And it sounds really cool, but basically super flat is a postmodern art movement that emerged just in the last 2 decades. And really, just to read off the Wikipedia, because it's probably the best summary we've got, Murakami defines super flat in broad terms. So the subject matter is very diverse. Some works explore the consumerism and sexual fetishism that is prevalent in post-war Japanese culture. These works often are an exploration of otaku sexuality through grotesque and or distorted images. Other works are more concerned with a fear of growing up. So, for example, another artist called Yoshitomo Nara, his work often features playful graffiti on an old Japanese ukiyo-e executed in a childish manner. And some works focus on the structure and underlying desires that comprise otaku and overall post-war Japanese culture. Murakami himself is influenced by directors such as Hideaki Anno. So Superflat is much like pop art. It is a reaction to popular culture, and specifically it is a response to what Murakami and other Superflat artists see as a kind of superficiality around Japanese consumerism. And as a technique, it's really about taking various flattened forms of Japanese graphic art, animation, pop culture, and fine arts, and melding them together in a way that expresses what the artists like to think of as the kind of shallow emptiness of Japanese consumer culture. So in Cupid Parasite, we can see that the conversations that the game is having are very much aligned with the conversations that the Superflat artists have within their own work. And I do believe that the art style is a deliberate reference to that because Superflat is a fairly well-known art style, and the developers have put that association in there for people who are paying attention to better clarify the points that the game is trying to make. In Cupid Parasite, you play as Cupid herself, as in the god, who is really struggling in her job because people are not getting married, or those marriages are not sticking, and people are not having children. The birth rate is plunging, which is a very much a real world problem in Japan that they are grappling with in a big way. And for whatever reason, the other gods are all pinning that on Cupid. But she doesn't believe that's the case, and she's decided that she's going to prove that by turning herself human and getting a job at a agency that specializes in putting people together and getting them married. She quickly rises up through the ranks of that agency and becomes their number one performer, at which point she is slapped with a pretty unenviable task, and that is that she needs to find 5 candidates, 5 wedding partners for 5 very delinquent men. Men who, for the longest time in the game, don't really seem like they would ever have turned up in this agency in the first place. They're there for reasons that we don't really understand. The game doesn't really bother engaging with anyway. It kind of becomes clearer towards the end, but again, it's not really the point. The point is that these guys are there, and it's all artificial, and the reasons behind that are all artificial, and that's fine because it's a comedy and it's not really meant to make perfect sense at all times. But they're there, and you need to find them the perfect partner, and that is the point of the game. And through that, the game very quickly delves into all kinds of elements of superficiality within culture, including romance itself. I mean, when we look at the modern world and the fact that we do have these agencies there that are designed to help people find love, and the apps like Tinder and whatever, and all those kinds of things, there is this effort to commodify romance and to turn relationships into a transaction and a example, or something that you can turn into consumerism, something that you can bring into the capitalist world and turn into a product. That's really what this game is looking at and satirizing. It is very much tongue-in-cheek. It is very much, it's quite funny. Like it's not one of those serious comedies as such, which are more kind of bitter than they are laugh out loud funny. This game very much tries to be laugh out loud funny through most of it, and it largely succeeds. But there is definitely that subtext running within it, that it is very aware of commodification and the superficiality of all of this. And all of that's kind of reflected both through the narrative and also the art style. I will say that this game is absolutely gorgeous in what it is doing, and it is very easy to be cheap with pop art, and there are a lot of very bad pop art artists out there, as well as Superflat. I mean, Superflat being an extension of pop art in a lot of ways. The same problems are there for artists that are just not very good. It's unfortunate, but the space is filled with them. I mean, every art movement is filled with bad artists, but these ones in particular are filled with bad artists. This game, though, is really quite spectacular. Automate is known for really gorgeous, detailed art, especially in the kind of cutscenes that they do, the CGs and whatever. They're known for being quite intricate, detailed, and having an emphasis on beauty rather than anything else. But this game has all of those qualities. It is very high quality production, but it is different. It's tuned in a different way. It gives us a different look at a different side of Ultimate. And for people who have played a lot of Ultimate games, that is nice in itself. This is them being free and creative and funny and just having a laugh with the visual novel format. And as somebody who's played a lot of Ultimate games in the past, this is a nice distraction, a nice change of pace, and it's just a joy to play. I mean, the topics that it's addressing, you can get serious about them, I guess. I mean, consumerism and superficiality in culture and all those things, they're certainly topics worth having a serious discussion about. But at the same time, you can have a lot of fun with them. And that's really both where Superflat works and this game. So yeah, thank you very much for tuning in. If you are a fan of Takashi Murakami, and I should have mentioned actually earlier, I have been to a Takashi Murakami exhibition not so long ago, actually, just before Australia went into lockdown. There was an exhibition of Japanese ukiyo-e art that was on, and as part of that, they had a kind of modern take on a lot of the themes and stuff. Not ukiyo-e, sorry, the yokai, the demons and stuff. Japanese supernatural, that was the name of it. And anyway, they had a modern take on it, and they had a couple of Murakami's works in there, including a newly commissioned one. And seeing it was just amazing. This super flat genre is definitely one I recommend you going along to a gallery and seeing if you get the chance, because the colours are so vivid and the way that they pop off the canvas and what the artists can do when they've got a bit of size to work with as well. You don't really get that when you're looking at it on a page, but when you see it in person and they've got these big artworks going, it is really a mesmerising experience, and I highly recommend it. Very, very much worthwhile. Takashi Murakami is an artist that I think you should look into if you haven't yet. But anyway, once again, this is the end of the video now. Please do let me know your own thoughts in the comments. Have you played this game? Does it interest you? Does the art style appeal to you? Do let me know your thoughts. And if you have seen some super flat in the past, let's have a chat about that as well. I know that's an art discussion rather than a video game discussion, but in theory there should be some crossover there. I'm hoping this video gets you thinking about some of the crossovers that can happen. If you've enjoyed this video, please do let me know in the comments. Oh, sorry, I've already gone through that. I'm losing it. It's a long week already. If you enjoy my videos, please do mash that like and subscribe button. That way you won't miss any of them. And if you do want to support what we're doing here at digitallydownloaded.net, please do consider backing me on Patreon, which you can do for $1 a month or more if you're feeling generous. And in doing so, not only do you support the videos that we do here, the written work we do at digitallydownloaded.net, including the review I've got here of Cupid Parasite, but you also get a monthly magazine, and that monthly magazine goes in depth with all kinds of things to do with video games, but also Japanese culture, from the history to the landscapes to tourism to food to drink to film to visual arts and music and all the rest of it. We kind of look at the entire culture and why it has given us these amazing games that we love so much. So that's a good value for money subscription if ever there was one. 48-page magazine for $1 a month. All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. We will see you next time.